the first bank of the United States. On July 3rd, Disney Plus is going to release the musical Hamilton for the world to enjoy. Alexander Hamilton did a lot of his important work here in Philadelphia. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you all the sites, or the spots where the sites were of where Alexander Hamilton worked when he lived in Philadelphia. So that building with the columns is the First Bank of the United States. And right here, Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary, presided over the largest executive department created by Congress under the Constitution. His bold fiscal policies created political controversy, but also a solid foundation for the new government. If you look here, this brick outline is the outline to what was Hamilton's office. It was a 2-story brick building that stood here on the corner, and from what documents show, it was not that great of a building. The building itself wasn't that great, but the policies made in that building helped save this country. This is something they do in Old City. The buildings don't remain, so they lay these bricks out so you can kind of get an idea of where the buildings were. So the policies Hamilton made in that office there were responsible in making this building here. This is the First Bank of the United States. It started construction in 1795. Alexander Hamilton's office as treasurer was 50 yards from there. In 1795, when he was wrapping up his run as Treasury Secretary, he would walk from his office to his house. And this bank was being built so he could see his idea, his dream come true, which is this bank, which was only open until about 1811. It's actually not even open now. It's nothing now. So there's going to be a lot of restoration. Put on earbuds, asshole. Inside, it has this beautiful dome with those columns. Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton was the force behind the creation of the First Bank of the United States. The bank paid the Revolutionary War debt and guided the United States through its first unstable financial time. The style of this building is called Greek Revival. Look like Greek temples, because Greece was the first democracy. We were a new democracy, and we're paying homage, or we wanted to give the appearance of what a Greek building would look like in modern times. Keep in mind, I'm a high school educated guy, and my descriptions of what architecture is explained like a high school educated jerk off. All right, so the next stop on our tour will be the house of where Alexander Hamilton lives. The house is no longer there, it's just a sign. But let's go take a look at that sign. On the ground occupied by this building once stood the house where lived in 1791 Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of Treasury of the United States. So his house was here, and he said, yo, build that John near my office. And look at this. So Hamilton's house was halfway down this block, and his office was on the very next corner all the way down. That's an easy commute to work. I'm at the corner of 4th and Walnut. Hamilton lived a block and a half that way on Walnut Street. If you turn around this way, if you walk about, 20 yards, this house here is the Todd house. Dolly Madison lived here with her first husband, John Todd. But Mariah Reynolds, the woman Hamilton had a steamy affair with for about a year, she lived somewhere around here, somewhere in this area. So think about that. He walked a block to work. His girlfriend lived a block away. I tell you, this guy He didn't like to walk very far. When he's planning out his affair, he said, "Hey, Mariah, you want to have an affair?" And she said, "Yeah." And he said, "Listen, I'll do it, but you got to tell me your address. If it's 4 blocks from my house, I can't commit the time. It's going to take me 6 minutes to walk the 4 blocks." Mariah and her husband, they did Hamilton dirty. They blackmailed him for a few dollars, and then some journalist wrote this paper saying, "Yo, Hamilton did some wrong things when he was the treasurer. When he was Secretary of Treasury, he did some dirty things. Plus, he had an affair." To debunk what this guy said about what he did wrong when he was Treasury Secretary, he wrote this, I think it was called the Reynolds pamphlet. And it pretty much, I didn't do this, I did have this affair, and what you going to do about it? There it is, Carpenters Hall, site of the First Continental Congress. So if you ever go in that Carpenters Hall, it's one big open space. There used to be 2 rooms in a dividing wall. They needed some space for the Continental Congress. It was Alexander Hamilton's recommendation that we knock down that wall and make one big room so the Continental Congress could meet inside there. They had to write a letter to King George. King George was taxing us, right? And we didn't want to be taxed. So got a bunch of guys together. They wrote a letter to King George saying, yo guys, why don't you chill out with the taxes? And they wrote the letter. He didn't respond. So, this little war happened. This Revolutionary War happened. Before construction of the first Bank of the United States was complete, they were running the first Bank of the United States out of Carpenters Hall. Fun fact about Carpenters Hall, the first bank robbery happened at Carpenters Hall. The Free Library of Philadelphia, the Free Library Company housed books in there. So it was like the first library, the first bank robbery, the first Continental Congress. Lots of firsts. Alexander Hamilton himself walked up these steps. This is the second Bank of the United States. In 1811, they pulled the charter from the first Bank of the United States. We didn't have any wars going on. We had no more national debt. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that national bank. That's what they said. 1812, they started this war. Let me think of the name of the war. Oh, I think it's the War of 1812. And guess what? You start a war, or you go to war, you're going to have some debt. Second Bank of the United States. Alexander Hamilton was shot already. He's dead. He ain't got nothing to do with this. But another Greek revival building with the big stone columns and the steps. Right now, it's a portrait gallery of the founding fathers, and there are some portraits of Alexander Hamilton in there. So this is Independence Hall. That building right there behind the trees, that's the first Congress and Senate building right there. And that little building in the corner there, that's the first Supreme Court. So what you're looking at from 1790 to 1800, this is where the federal government of the United States was. And of course, we got to wrap it up here at Independence Hall. This is I don't think, when they sing the room where it happens, that's some building in New York, but technically, let's be, the room where it happened is in that building. 1, 2, the third window, right under that window is the table where Alexander Hamilton sat, where they signed all those documents. It was that building. This is the building that housed Congress and Senate. The bottom floor was Congress. The upper floor was the Senate. And when George Washington transferred power to John Adams was sworn in that building. Kind of makes me think of that song, One Last Time. Washington gives his farewell address. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. When George Washington gave his farewell address, I think Hamilton helped write it. And he transferred power to John Adams. It's the most, I think, that's one of, if besides having the Declaration of Independence signed here and the Constitution and all that stuff, I think the transferring of power from one president to another, it's one of the top 3 most important things to happen in this block. My opinion. Keep in mind, I'm a high school educated jerk off. Oh. There it is, the Liberty Bell. Hey, Liberty Bell. Not much going on. You know, I'm just showing people what Alexander Hamilton did when he was in Philadelphia. That's the bell that rang when we declared independence. It's called the Liberty Bell. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It has a big crack in it. Well, that's it. That's my tour of Alexander Hamilton in Philadelphia. Well, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll sail with you later.